All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking real music in real time for real people just like you right there, just like me right here. So Ann Wilson is out there paying tribute to Alice in Chains. And according to the article that I read, and then I went and watched the video, she has released a disturbing version of the song Rooster, which quite honestly, in my estimation, was one of those songs and one of those moments that redefined the industry. And the industry, by the way, hasn't recovered from Alice in Chains or Pearl Jam or Soundgarden or Stone Temple Pilots. None of that music, in my estimation, was a good idea. I understand that this was a correction to the 1980s and the decadence and the fun and the melody, and in some cases, the more blues-based, honest roots, traditional rock music. But what grunge did was it defined rock music down. Didn't make it better, it made it worse. And for the last 30 plus years now, we have been dealing with this style of music in a post-grunge era. And if you turn on mainstream rock radio, it's mostly dark. It's mostly brooding. It's mostly whining. It's mostly screaming. And that's what grunge gave birth to. Now, Ann Wilson is out there paying tribute. She's from Seattle. She apparently thinks she should have an affinity with this music. And she's done her own version of Rooster. And by golly, it is really bad. It is a really bad song. Her version certainly does not improve on the original, which wasn't really that good to begin with. You know, if there was a razor blade nearby back in the 90s and you were listening to Rooster, just don't know if you would make it through to the end of the song. And this music in general, folks, especially in the times that we're living through, not the most uplifting, optimistic type of music you can listen to. Now, is it a form of art? Sure. Do people have a right to enjoy it, listen to it, like it? Yeah, there are people who vehemently disagree with me on this, and that's fine. But I lived through the timeline, right? And if you live through the timeline, you may have noticed that everything else that was being played on the radio slowly got swept aside. I mean, they were still trying. They were still trying to throw things at the wall to see if they would stick. But collectively, the music industry, meaning the record labels, the radio stations, everybody involved, decided that all of that music prior was just really cheesy. Well, the band Heart in the 1980s rose to super duper heights in the world of cheese, okay? It was pop, it was rock, it was glam, it was glitz, it was melody, it was big hair, and that was the Heart of the 1980s. Back in the 70s, Heart was trying to be just a great 70s band, paying homage to Led Zeppelin and so many other bands that were in that particular era. And that was good for them to have that kind of taste, because that was really the pinnacle of who they were. The 80s, they managed to reinvent themselves to the point where even Ann Wilson was shaking her head after recording the song, All I Want to Do Is Make Love to You, okay, back in 1990. Probably one of the worst songs ever written as far as lyrics go. Song itself, melody-wise, isn't bad. lyrics are the most creepy, disgusting, weird thing that I've ever heard. I'm just saying, when that song comes on, I just cringe. I like the music. I can't stand the lyrics. The lyrics are ridiculous. So this is a band, which means this is Ann Wilson and Nancy, but Ann Wilson lived through this. And I don't know if this is repentance or if this is a lack of creativity on her end, but I think the band Heart isn't benefiting from Ann Wilson's just going off on her own, doing what she wants to do, just throwing stuff up against the wall and hoping that it will stick, paying tribute to Seattle. Most fans of the band Heart are not hardcore 90s grunge fans. I mean, Heart did a cover of Tell It Like It Is. Heart did Dog and Butterfly. Heart did Alone and Stranded, and all these songs where you're like, it's a power ballad, right? It's a nice, melodious power ballad. I'm just not sure where all this other stuff fits in. Well, Dave, these women are very sophisticated, especially Anne. Nancy, I think, would rather go back to the Heart template to some degree. And I think when she went out and did her solo album, she kind of went in that direction to some degree, but I don't know specifically if she wants to reinvent herself. She wants to be this Seattle Chaz Chop Zone diva. I don't know. I think Ann Wilson wants to do that. And you know what? Things have gotten worse since the band broke up after the Who Let the Dogs Out incident, which I covered on this channel a lot, because it didn't seem like anybody was sorry for what they did. And clearly there were some problems when it came to Ann Wilson's husband. And I think you can use Google and find out a little bit more on your own if you weren't here when I was covering that particular issue. It took a while for the sisters to reconcile. There was a lot of money on the table for them to go out and tour. They finally did, but then that tour ended, and now they're on their own again. And it doesn't seem like there's really any urgency to resurrect the Heart brand. Such a great band and a great brand, which was, of course, stopped dead in its tracks in the 1990s, thanks to the music that Ann Wilson is now obsessed with. Just kind of weird to me. So in any event, I'm thinking that Heart definitely has an Ann Wilson problem these days. She's off doing what she wants to do. She thinks she's all cutting edge and sophisticated and pushing the boundaries of music and so forth. But I'd rather push the boundaries back to where a great band used to be. Back in the 70s and 80s, that's when Heart was at their peak, culminating in 1990 and the aforementioned song that I Can't Stand. But yes, they were on the radio. They were in the top 10. I would rather hear that horrible lyric than a redo of a really awful grunge song. Okay, now you can have a different opinion on Alice in Chains, Rooster. That's just not my thing. It wasn't then. It's why I went and listened to country and smooth jazz, and I looked for alternative ways to find music that was no longer being put on the radio. And I'm still doing it. Like 20 plus years later, I'm still doing it. So there are people out there that like melody, that like harmony, that like good songwriting, that don't do dark, brooding, and obnoxious 24 hours a day. It's no way to live. Yeah, you can have a dark side, but typically on the flip side of that dark side there's a sunny side. And back in the day, Heart could do the songs that were a little bit sunnier than the stuff that Ann Wilson seems to be into today. So I do think a lot of this stems from the band's breakup. And I don't know if Heart will get back together again. I'm sure there's plenty of money on the table for a 2022 summer tour, but who knows if it will ever happen. And even if it does, I don't know if it's going to be done with any level of enthusiasm. Rather, it will be done just because there's a big pile of money waiting for the two sisters. So again, you can check out that song Rooster. It's on YouTube. The video is disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised, and I do mean this. I don't know where she's going with it. I really don't. I don't understand it. How about you sit down with your sister and write some really good songs and put out a Heart record rather than, you know, a redo of a grunge song, which quite honestly was done way better by Alice in Chains, even though I can't stand it. At least I can admit that if you're going to listen to that particular song, you might want to go back to the artist that recorded it, and then you can enjoy it if that's your thing. In any event, my name is Dave. Thanks for watching the channel. We are over 50K officially. So I want to thank you. I want to thank me, but I want to thank you for subscribing to the channel. Also, patrons, as our subscribers increase, our revenue decreases in January. It's always a fun thing to see. Look at all those views I got. What's happening? Well, your revenue is going down because advertisers don't advertise as much at this time of year. At least that's what I'm told. But again, if you can recommend the channel, if you can share the videos, that's important. And Patreon for just $1 a month, that is a really good idea too. Helps keep me going, makes me feel as though people like what I'm doing. So all of those things are encouraging. And of course, we will continue to forge ahead. And thanks for watching this video. I will see you soon.